This happened a few months ago. I'm Kyle, a 32-year-old travel blogger, and I thought exploring motels in the Appalachian Mountains would bring me some great stories. Little did I know, the adventure would soon turn dark and strange. It's hard to forget what I experienced. I checked into my first motel late at night. The neon sign outside flickered like a warning. I felt uneasy but shrugged it off. I tossed my bags on a creaky wooden floor and tried to settle in. As I lay in bed, I heard soft knocking on my door. It sounded distant at first, like someone tapping wooden beams. Maybe it was another guest? My heart skipped. I decided to ignore it and closed my eyes. A chill crawled up my spine. The next morning, I figured I had imagined it. I went to a diner for breakfast and talked to locals. They shared stories about the Whispering Motels. It was a nickname for places where odd things happened. I laughed nervously, thinking it was just folklore. Later, I moved on to the second motel. The moment I stepped inside my room, a shiver ran through me. The flickering light above me caught my attention. I felt a weight in the air, thick and heavy. I wanted to focus on my writing, but the room felt wrong. That night I heard a soft piano tune softly drifting through the hallway, a sweet yet eerie melody. I stepped out, hoping to find its source, but the hallway was completely empty. My heart raced. I wanted to shake it off, but couldn't. I locked my door, feeling the pressing weight of unseen eyes. At the third motel, I encountered a couple who looked familiar. I called out to them, but they vanished in an instant when I looked away. I felt a shudder roll through me. Each motel I visited piled on more horror. I lost track of reality. Faces appeared in mirrors. Shadows moved in the corners of my eyes. By the time I reached the last motel, the tension peaked. I went to bed early, desperate for rest. Then the knocking returned. This time it was louder, almost pleading. My hands gripped the sheets. I wanted to yell for help but couldn't find my voice. Suddenly, the sound stopped. I hesitated but finally peeked out. Nothing stood there. Yet, the air buzzed heavy with dread. I crept back to my bed, feeling a weight as if the darkness pressed against me. I turned slowly, and that's when I heard it. The soft whispers creeping around me. They seemed to call my name. My skin prickled with fear. I didn't know what to do. Were the motels tricking me? Or was it something far more sinister lurking in the shadows? The darkness swirled and I felt lost and alone. I couldn't escape what I had stumbled into. As I waited for dawn, the whispers continued, and I understood that I was not alone anymore. The motels had their guests, and I could feel them all around me, forever waiting in the dark. I woke up the next morning feeling drained. The whispers faded with the light, but the anxiety lingered. I packed my things slowly, every groan of the floorboards echoing in the unnerving silence. I knew I had to leave, but something kept pulling me back. A curiosity mingled with dread. After checking out, I headed to the local library. I hoped to find something, anything, that could explain the strange occurrences I had faced. The librarian was an older woman with thick glasses, her gaze sharp. I told her about the motels. Her expression changed and she nodded, as if I had spoken a language she understood all too well. "There are stories," she said in a low voice, "about folks who get trapped in those places. The motels have a way of holding on to people." My stomach dropped. "You might want to look into the earlier owners. They say some never left." I spent hours searching through old newspapers and records. Each article revealed pieces of history that chilled me. Missing persons, accidents, and legends of those who checked in but never checked out. I pictured the faces I had seen, the couple who vanished, and the whispers I couldn't shake off. That's when I found a faded newspaper clipping. The headline read, "Motel owner claims spirits roam the halls." Below it, a photo caught my breath. The man in the image looked eerily familiar. His eyes almost seemed to follow me. I read on. He had disappeared under mysterious circumstances decades ago. The article ended with an unsettling note. "Some say his spirit remains, waiting for company." A shiver ran through me as I realized it wasn't just motels. It was more personal. I couldn't shake the feeling I'd encountered him during my travels. I had brushed shoulders with something that transcended fear. Rushing to leave the library, I bumped into a man who had been sitting at a nearby table. He looked deeply troubled and kept glancing back toward me as if he recognized my face. "You need to leave," he said urgently. "You don't understand what's happening." "Wait, what do you mean?" I asked, my heart racing. "They're watching you. They want you to stay." His eyes darted around, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Don't go back to those motels. Trust me." Suddenly, the air around us thickened, and I felt as if the walls of the library were closing in. I glanced back at the door. Panic surged in me. "Who are you?" I demanded, but before he could answer, shadows began creeping at the edges of my vision. Just then, everything went dark. The lights flickered out, plunging us into an eerie silence. My heart pounded and I felt an overwhelming sense of impending dread. I fumbled for my phone, but before I could turn it on, a cold breath wrapped around my neck. I turned, and that was when I saw it. A figure standing in the corner of the room. A familiar face grinning at me in the dark. A chill spread through my bones as his whispers filled the air, mingling with the darkness and horror that closed in on me. The darkness felt alive, pulsing with a dreadful energy. I froze, pinned in place by that familiar grin. The figure's eyes, those haunting, unblinking eyes, locked onto mine. A rush of panic coursed through me. I turned and stumbled toward the exit, the chilling whispers growing louder behind me. Just as I reached for the door handle, the lights flickered back on, harsh and blinding. The library returned to normal, but I was far from reassured. The man who had warned me earlier was gone, leaving only the lingering weight of his words. I turned around, scanning the room, but the shift in atmosphere felt unmistakable. It was as if something had been released. I dashed outside, gasping for air. I needed to think, to process what had just happened. I walked toward my car, trying to shake off the feeling of something watching me from the shadows. I hesitated, glancing back at the library. The figure. Was he connected to the motel owner? Did he know what I had stumbled into? I reached my car and flung the door open. Then I noticed something on the passenger seat, a stack of old photos. My heart raced as I recognized one of the images. It depicted the same man from the library, but this time he looked alive, standing in front of a motel with a group of people. I grabbed the photos and flipped through them. Each image added to the unsettling familiarity. The same couple from the inn now smiling, carefree. As I examined the last photo, an old woman caught my eye. She had a vacant expression but held a haunting resemblance to the librarian. My skin prickled. The connections were weaving tighter, each thread pulling me deeper into a mystery I was terrified to unravel. I started the engine, but before I could pull away, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket. I hesitated, knowing I shouldn't let distractions linger. Cautiously, I retrieved it. A single message flashed on the screen. "You're in danger. Go to the old church at dawn. Trust no one but yourself." My hands trembled. Who sent this? Was it the man from the library or someone else? I glanced around, feeling the weight of unseen eyes on me. The drive back to my motel felt longer than ever, as my mind raced with questions. If I went to the church, what would I find? I had to know, but fear urged me to drive away, to escape the strange pull of the motels. The choice loomed over me, clear yet terrifying. I needed to confront whatever lay ahead, even if it meant plunging back into the darkness. As I finally made it back to my motel, I noticed strange symbols drawn in the dirt outside my room. My breath hitched. They looked familiar. Had I seen them in the old newspaper articles? Just then the whispers returned, clearer now, echoing my name. I turned sharply, and my heartbeat quickened. In the dim light, I noticed movement. Shadows shifted against the walls. Someone was in the vicinity, someone intimately aware of my presence. With a deep breath, I steeled myself for what was coming. I felt an ancient connection to this place, and I knew I had to break the cycle before it engulfed me completely. I glanced back at the darkened hallway that led to my room, absorbing every detail, a decision settling within me. The church at dawn would be my only chance at uncovering the truth. The sun peeked over the horizon, casting eerie shadows that seemed to move. I parked my car outside the old church, my throat tight with apprehension. The message echoed in my mind, "Trust no one but yourself." I had no idea what I would find, but I knew I had to go inside. Pushing the heavy door open, the scent of mildew hit me hard. Dust motes danced in the beams of light filtering through the stained glass. My heart raced with each step, the sound of my shoes muffled by the worn floorboards. I scanned the room, half expecting to see the figure from the library materialize before me. But there was nothing, only silence. I took a deep breath and stepped deeper into the nave. Each pew loomed like a shadowy guardian, witness to secrets I had yet to uncover. The altar stood at the far end, framed by rotting tapestries. I felt drawn to it, like a moth to a flame, and cautiously moved forward. That's when I saw it. A book lay open on the altar. The pages were yellowed, and the faded script seemed to pulse in the dim light. I approached it slowly, racing thoughts flooding my mind. What was this? I reached out, hesitating as a chill brushed my fingertips. When I finally touched the page, an electric jolt shot through me. Images flashed in my mind, visions of the motel, the couple, and the librarian. Every connection deepened in intensity. I pulled back, overwhelmed. What did this mean? Why was I experiencing these fragments? I flipped to the page marked by a withering bookmark, an illustration of the same strange symbols I had seen outside my motel room. Had I stumbled into something greater than a mere road trip? I took a step back, the weight of the realization settling in. The church was part of the web, bound to the motel, to the figures lurking in the darkness. Then I heard a rustling at the back of the church. My heart dropped. I wasn't alone anymore. I turned toward the sound, every sense heightened. Shadows shifted behind the wooden beams, but I couldn't see what was lurking there. My body felt heavy, urging me to run, but my feet remained frozen. "Hello?" My voice cracked, uncertainty flooding my tone. Silence hung thick, and I could hear my breath rattling in my chest. I took a cautious step toward the sound, my eyes straining against the shadows. Nothing stirred. Just when I thought it was safe, a figure stepped into the light. It was the man from the library, his expression inscrutable. My blood ran cold, the memories of our last encounter rushing back. "What do you want?" I managed to ask, but my voice trembled. He took a step forward, the smile on his lips fading. "You're not meant to be here," he said, his voice low and urgent. "You have to leave before it's too late." His warning sent a jolt of fear through me. "What do you mean? What's happening? What am I involved in?" The shadows danced around him, and just as he opened his mouth to respond, the church doors slammed shut behind me. My heart raced as the whispers returned, louder, overlapping like a cacophony. The symbols from the dirt outside flashed in my mind, binding me here. I had to think fast. What was about to unfold? Would I become part of this wretched history, or would I find a way to escape? The man's gaze locked onto mine, but I had no time for answers. A surge of instinct propelled me to the nearest exit. I bolted toward the heavy doors, my breath quickening. But as I reached for the handle, it wouldn't budge. Panic surged through me as I pounded my fists against it. "Let me out!" I shouted, desperation creeping into my voice. The man moved closer, his shadow stretching across the floor. "You don't understand," he said, urgency lacing his tone. "It's not safe for you here. You're digging into things you shouldn't. They're watching." "Who's watching?" I demanded, my heart racing as I turned to face him. "What do you mean?" His expression shifted, a flicker of fear crossing his face. "Those symbols you saw. The book. They are part of an ancient warning. You don't know what you're awakening." The air felt thick, charged with unseen energy. I could almost feel the weight of hidden eyes upon me. "You need to tell me everything," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "I won't just walk away." He hesitated, glancing around as if expecting something or someone to emerge from the shadows. You think you want this truth, but it comes with a cost. It binds you in ways you cannot yet fathom. Suddenly, the ground shook, a tremor that rattled the stained glass. I staggered, clutching the altar to steady myself. The whispers intensified, a dissonant hum that reverberated through the church. I glanced back at him. "What's happening?" "We need to go," he yelled, his eyes wide with urgency. I moved instinctively, following him as he turned and dashed toward a small door at the side of the altar. It was a narrow, dimly lit passage that seemed to lead nowhere. I glanced back at the entrance, still firmly closed. The man beckoned me forward. "Hurry! It's the only way." With a quick glance at the altar, I took a step into the passage, the air growing still around us. The walls closed in as we pressed onward, the murmurs behind us fading but still present. Each step felt more foreboding than the last. As we rounded a corner, we stumbled into a room filled with old relics, dust-covered artifacts, tattered banners, and strange symbols etched into the walls. It was like stepping into another time, but there was something unsettling about the place. "What is this?" I asked, taking in the surroundings. "This is where they kept things. Secrets," he replied, his voice low. "It's a place of power. The symbols are not just warnings. They connect to the past and bind the present. You're part of this now." I turned to him, confusion swirling in my mind. "What do you mean? Why me?" Before he could answer, a loud crash echoed from the church, a rumble of chaos that reverberated through the wooden walls. My heart sank. Whatever was pursuing me had now arrived. The man's eyes widened with fear. "We don't have much time. Follow me." He dashed to another door at the back of the room. Just as I took a step forward, I noticed a flicker of movement at the corner of my vision. A shadow, darker than the rest, slipped through the doorway we had just passed. "I won't let them take you," he said, his voice resolute yet strained. "We must get out." But as we raced toward the exit, the heaviness of the shadows pressed in, building an unbearable tension. There was no turning back now, only forward into whatever awaited us beyond the door. The moment we burst through, all I could think was that I had crossed a line from which there was no return. The moment we stumbled into the next room, the air shifted. It felt electric, charged with a sense of both danger and urgency. I looked around, taking in the dim light and the flickering shadows that danced on the walls. Objects cluttered the space. Old books, jars filled with strange liquids, and symbols that mirrored those in the church. "What is this place?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "It's a sanctuary," he replied, glancing nervously at the door we had just come through. "But it can also be a prison if we're not careful." Before I could respond, the sound of footsteps echoed from behind us. My breath hitched as fear gripped me tight. It was like the shadows were alive, crawling toward us. The man grabbed my arm. "This way. We need to move." He led me through an arched doorway, into a long corridor lined with more artifacts. The shadows deepened with every step we took. I could almost hear whispers, though I couldn't make out the words. Were they warnings? "Why did you say I'm part of this?" I panted, fear edging into my voice. "What did I awaken?" He hesitated again, his jaw set. "Some things should remain buried. You stumbled upon a legacy. A dark legacy that ties you to something ancient." I felt a chill run down my spine. "Do you mean because of the book, the symbols?" "Yes," he said, urgency creeping into his tone again. "You have to understand, it goes beyond the text. It's about what's tied to it. Forces that are far too powerful for any one person to control." Suddenly a loud crash erupted from the corridor behind us, sending me stumbling forward. The man steadied me as I fought to regain my balance. "They're coming," he urged. I turned, my heart racing. This wasn't just a game. Something truly sinister was after us. With a swift motion, the man pulled me through another door, slamming it shut behind us. We found ourselves in a dimly lit room filled with candles that flickered ominously. That's when I saw it. A mirror. Not just any mirror, but one that reflected the room behind us as if it was still there. But it wasn't identical. The shadows in the mirror twisted in strange, grotesque shapes, their mouths moving silently, as if caught in a scream. "What the hell is that?" I gasped, stumbling back. "It's a gateway," he said, dread knotting his features, "and it shows us what is coming." The reality of his words hit me like a punch. The whispers grew louder, and something in the mirror began to coalesce. Figures emerging from the darkness, their eyes glowing with chilling intensity. "I won't let them take you," he murmured almost to himself. I felt the urgency surging within me. "What do we do?" "We have to seal it," he said. "But you need to trust me. You'll need to make a choice." The specters in the mirror began to reach toward us, their arms stretching, fingers curling in a beckoning gesture. My pulse raced, a mix of fear and adrenaline coursing through me. "Make a choice?" I echoed, uncertain of what lay ahead. "Yes, you must decide," he said, "to embrace the power or let it go, once and for all." Just then, the door rattled violently behind us. The shadows were coming for me. My heart skipped a beat as the door shook again. The shadows outside were relentless, clawing and scraping, as if they were trying to break through. I could almost hear their whispers now, frenzied and frantic. "Please," I whispered, panic creeping into my throat. "What do we do?" He glared at the mirror, then back at me, his expression grim. "We have to break the connection, but I can't do it alone." "Stop talking in riddles," I shouted, frustration bubbling over. "Tell me what you need me to do." He paused, taking a deep breath. "Look into the mirror. It will show you the truth about this power. You can either harness it or turn your back. Just know, once you make a choice, there's no going back." I hesitated, my gaze flickering to the grotesque figures in the mirror, their distorted faces writhing as if they could sense my fear. My gut twisted at the thought of looking deeper, but I could feel the weight of their presence like iron chains pulling me closer. "Okay," I breathed, steeling myself. "I'll do it." As I stepped toward the mirror, the world around me seemed to dim. The flickering candle flames reflected in the glass, creating a dance of light that seemed to beckon me. I leaned closer, squinting into the depths of the mirror's surface. The chaos within began to take shape. Images flickered before me, myself, just a regular person caught in the crosshairs of something unimaginable. I saw moments from my life, memories that felt oddly intertwined with the unknown. Then a new figure emerged, barely visible at first. A woman clad in shadow, her eyes piercing through the darkness. "You are more than you know," she said, her voice echoing as if from eternity. "You possess the strength to alter the fate awaiting you." "What do you mean?" I managed to murmur, entranced. "Choose wisely," she replied, her form blurring into the wisps of shadow, merging with the rest. "Embrace or reject the power. It determines not only your fate, but the destiny of those tied to you." The whispers grew louder again, drowning out her words. I turned back to the man, desperation written all over my face. What do I do? What does it mean? "Let me show you," he urged, pushing me back, away from the mirror. But I was already lost in thought. Suddenly, a loud crash erupted from behind the door. Splintering wood sprang across the room. Fear washed over me as the shadowy figures from the mirror spilled into the room, twisting and writhing with fury. Their eyes locked onto me, filled with hunger. "Make your choice," he shouted, his voice barely audible over the chaos around us. I felt the sudden weight of their intentions pressing down on me, and instinctively, I grabbed the edge of the mirror. There was an overwhelming urge within me, a call to harness the energy surging through the air. The whispers turned into a cacophony. "Embrace it," I heard above the rest, a seductive voice coaxing me deeper. But as I stood there, the world swirled around me. My choice hung in balance, trembling on the edge of oblivion. I wavered, caught between the shadows and the mirror's depths. I felt the air grow thick, like a storm brewing inside me. The chaos around us crescendoed, pushing me to the brink of an answer I wasn't sure I wanted to find. Before I could gather my thoughts, the first shadow lunged for me, its claws reaching through the space like a nightmare made real. The man shouted something, but I couldn't hear him over the shrieks echoing in my mind. "Embrace the power. The seductive voice echoed again, stronger now, promising strength and freedom. "No," I screamed, shaking my head violently. I couldn't. What if it consumed me? Images from the mirror flickered again. My life, my family, my friends. Their faces twisted in shadow, dependent on my choice. My heart raced. "Help me," I gasped, but I was already catching the edge of the mirror, the cool glass warming under my touch. I could feel a pull, a connection, and if I leaned into it, I could be something different. Another shadow sprang at me, tackling me to the ground. I wrestled, instinctively swinging my arms, my desperation spilling out into primal fear. But just as the creature's claws came close, I saw the man dart towards us, grabbing a candle from the table. "Stay back!" he shouted, thrusting the flame into the approaching shadows. They recoiled, momentarily distracted by the light. My heart surged with hope. "Now, look deeper," he urged, as the flickering candle cast a brief halo around us. "You have to focus." I was still terrified. The whispers surged again, beckoning me with promises of power and safety. Was the man right? Would embracing this power save us or doom us? "Make a choice," he said urgently, darting his gaze between the shadows and me. "You can fight this, but you have to embrace who you really are." The voice from the mirror spoke once more, softer this time. "Listen to your heart." I closed my eyes. Could I trust them? Those lurking figures in the mirror, or the man fighting beside me? The air seemed to vibrate, the boundaries of time and space shrinking. I could feel the power, raw and wild, like a current ready to surge. Then the shadows lunged again, more organized now, as if they sensed my indecision. I opened my eyes just in time to see the man grab a shard of the broken door, our makeshift weapon, and thrust it at the closest shadow. "Do it!" he shouted, his voice breaking through the chaos. "Choose!" I felt the weight of his words sink in. I understood. I didn't need to reject or accept blindly. I just needed to harness what was inside me. In that moment, I took a deep breath and squared my shoulders. "I choose," I cried, and with that, I plunged my hand into the mirror's surface. Suddenly, everything went dark. The candle flickered violently before extinguishing, leaving us in nothing but a thick and suffocating void. Gripping the edges of reality, I strained against the shadows pulling at me from all sides. Then something within me ignited. A power surged, unlike anything I had ever felt. I wasn't just standing against the darkness, I was becoming part of it. But at what cost? No longer sure of my own identity, I felt the urge to scream. "Help!" I yelled, but my voice echoed endlessly, swallowed by the void. Then, just before I lost myself completely, a single thought broke through the chaos. Was it worth it? As the shadows loomed closer, the answer hung heavily in the air, a dim glimmer of hope mixing with the fear that encroached upon us. What felt like seconds stretched into minutes, the darkness wrapping around me, suffocating yet strangely exhilarating. The shadows whispered now, their voices a haunting chorus. They lured me deeper, convincing me that they were part of me. Suddenly a spark shot through my fingertips like lightning, illuminating the void briefly. In that flash, I saw the man. He was struggling against the shadows, trying to hold him back, his eyes wide with fear but determination etched on his face. I could feel his presence, a tether pulling me back from the brink of complete surrender. "Fight it!" he yelled, his voice slashing through the darkness. "You're stronger than this!" His words sparked something within me. I hadn't chosen this power to lose myself in it. I still had a choice. I forced my eyes open wider, focusing on the sensation in my core. I felt the light within me growing, pushing against the shadows, forging a shield. Then everything shifted. It was like the glass of the mirror had cracked, shards of light bursting forth as I channeled my energy. The shadows shrieked, retreating from the illumination. I sensed their fear, a revelation that struck at the core of my being. They weren't invincible, they were terrified. Determined, I yelled back, "You don't own me." In response, the shadows lashed out, creeping closer, sensing their hold slipping. I could feel their icy breath, but I refused to back down. I reached toward the man, and our eyes locked. In that moment, A surge of clarity hit me. "Trust me," I called out as I focused my energy toward him. I didn't just want to protect myself. I wanted to share this force with him, to fight together. As if on cue, he nodded, resolve flooding his features. He raised the candle again, and with renewed vigor, I directed my energy towards it. The flame roared back to life, feeding off my strength, brightening the shadows of the void, creating a wedge between him and the darkness. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed something strange. An opening, a shimmering doorway that hadn't been there before. It pulsed with light, calling me, as if it contained the answers I sought. "Over there!" I shouted, pointing to the strange sight. "If we can reach it, we might escape." He hesitated for a fraction of a moment, but the shadows were closing in, desperate to reclaim us. With quick calculations, he grabbed the shard of the door, holding it up like a weapon. "We need to go now." With all my might, I pushed the flame toward the doorway, creating a barrier against the shadows. As he ran, I followed close behind, adrenaline coursing through me. But just as we reached the light, a shadow lunged toward me, claws grasping for my ankle. My heart raced, and I thought I was lost. I sent out a wave of energy, desperate to shield myself. The power surged, but instead of weakening, the force exploded outward, launching the shadow backward. "You've got to be kidding me," I muttered, stunned by my own strength. Then everything blurred, and I dove through the shimmering doorway, pulling the man with me. The shadows shrieked, fading in our wake. We tumbled into the light, gasping for air as we landed hard on a solid surface. Dazed and confused, I pushed myself up and looked around. That's when I saw it. We weren't back where we started. We stood in a strange motel room, the walls adorned with faded floral wallpaper, dust motes swirling in the sunlight. "What just happened?" the man gasped, eyes wide. Before I could respond, a chill ran down my spine. It felt like we'd just stepped into a different nightmare entirely. And then I saw it. The mirror. It sat in the corner, pristine and inviting, but this time it felt like a warning. I stumbled back, breath hitching in my throat as the familiar whispers returned, echoing off the walls and intertwining with my escalating panic. The man beside me searched the room, his expression a mix of confusion and fear. "Where are we?" he breathed, scanning every corner. "It looks just like a motel room," I finished for him. It was true. The same floral wallpaper, the same oppressive atmosphere of despair hung in the air. I felt nauseous, the weight of our escape already feeling like a distant dream. "Do you think we're safe here?" he asked, his voice trembling. I shrugged, feeling uncertainty creep back in, clawing at the edges of my mind. Had we truly escaped, or had we simply wandered into another layer of the same nightmare? The room felt like a trap, taunting us with a sense of familiarity. My eyes snapped back to the mirror. It stood watch as if it held the secrets of every soul that had passed through this place. What if it's still connected? What if we brought it with us? The man stepped cautiously toward the mirror, almost mesmerized. "We can't let it control us again. We need to destroy it." My stomach churned at the thought. Destroy the thing that seemed to pulse with its own energy? It could backfire. I hesitated, remembering the dark figures that had clawed for my life moments ago, their insatiable hunger for power. What if we don't know what we're doing? "I don't have a choice," he replied firmly. Determination hardened his features, but the uncertainty flickering in his eyes betrayed his own fear. I felt the gravity of our situation weigh down on me, a haunting reminder that the dark had a way of lurking just beneath the surface. As he approached the mirror, the whispers returned, swirling around us, murmuring warnings and secrets I couldn't decipher. A knot tightened in my chest. "No, wait," I shouted, rushing forward, but he pressed on. With a final desperate swing, he seized the closest object, a lamp, and smashed it against the mirror's surface. The glass cracked but didn't break. Shards splintered, reflecting fragmented images of us. It was eerie and haunting, our faces distorted in ways that made my skin crawl. The shadows danced at the edges of the shards, summoning a darkness that ripped through the cracks. I felt it then, an overwhelming force rising from the depths of the mirror, hungry and relentless. "Run!" I shouted, pushing him back as the air grew heavy. We stumbled away as the whispers turned into a cacophony, pleading and taunting, rising to a deafening roar. The mirror began to shimmer violently, and the room vibrated with a pulse that matched the frenetic energy building around us. Just as I thought we were free, a figure emerged from the mirror's depths. A dark silhouette distorted, its features a wicked mockery of humanity. A cold surge of terror washed over me. Despite having fought back once, I felt here in its presence, the depths of my resolve faltering. "What is it?" I gasped, gripped by anxiety. "I don't know," he managed, his voice trembling. "But I think it's what we've been running from." With a sudden swell of energy, the figure lunged, ethereal fingers reaching for me, but I instinctively raised my hand, drawing from the lingering power that had once surged through me in the void. I felt a flicker of hope rekindle. "Get behind me!" I yelled, facing the spectral shadow. Just like before, I could sense the power waiting within me, an energy ready to be tapped, something that both terrified and energized me. "I won't let it take us," I shouted. My body surged with a brilliant light as I thrust my hands toward the figure. A wave of luminescence erupted from my palms, crashing into the entity with a heavy force. Shadows writhed and twisted as they battled against the glow, but the light seared through, illuminating the darkness. "Finish it!" the man yelled, his voice cutting through the din as he joined me, pressing forward. Together we pushed, the shadows clawing at the light, thrashing wildly in protest. The figure shrieked, a sound filled with rage and desperation as it was forced back into the mirror. With one final surge, we drove it deep within, and I hurled all the fear, doubt, and vulnerability into that surge, sealing it inside the glass. The mirror cracked violently, shards exploding outward like shattered promises, sending a wave of dark energy rippling across the room before it imploded inward, collapsing upon itself in a devastating burst of power. The energy washed over us, lifting me off my feet, then fading into nothingness. Silence enveloped the room, save for our ragged breaths. I blinked, catching sight of the motels swirling in the remnants of darkened energies, shadows retreating from our sanctuary. Yet a part of me felt hollow, a lingering unease nestled in my gut. "We did it," he breathed, glancing around, disbelief washing over him. But his expression soon turned serious as the remnants of our ordeal began to weigh heavily on him. "Did we? Did we really?" I whispered, staring at the empty space where the mirror had been, shadows lingering like whispers of memories. Despite this victory, uncertainty lingered. What had we awakened? What memories remained behind? And had we truly escaped or only masked what would rise again? As we stood there in the quiet aftermath, I realized that some pieces of the darkness would never fully leave us, no matter how tightly we fought them back. "I think we need to go," I said, my voice shaky yet resolute. He nodded. Stepping outside, the air felt different, yet heavy, as if charged with the echoes of our fight. Looking back towards the motel, I felt the lingering weight of shadows glancing off the surface, the memories of those lost in the whispers. A knot twisted in my stomach, but turning away felt like a risk we'd have to take. I took a deep breath, ready to escape, yet knowing these memories would bind us still. Would I ever truly be free? I glanced at him, seeing the uncertainty mirrored in his eyes. Together we climbed into my car, ready to leave, yet an unspoken question hung in the air. How far would we go to escape the darkness? As I drove away, a single thought remained, that once you've brushed against shadow, the light never feels quite the same again.